Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Let's Talk TEFL podcast. I'm Jackie, and joining me is Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer.
Hi, Jackie.
So we're in the new year again. Keeping along with that theme, we're going to actually do some spring holiday activities for you. So I love to celebrate the various holidays like New Year's, Lunar New Year's, Easter, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day. There are just so many possibilities to do in class. So do you generally do holiday lessons in your classes, Jen?
Well, I teach kids, so I milk holidays for all that they are worth.
Yes. As you should when you teach kids, I think. For sure. Yeah, I will do it sometimes. It kind of depends on the class. In the more kind of like serious academic classes that I've taught, I generally won't. Usually there's like a textbook and kind of a prescribed set of things we have to get to, but kind of in like the more fun optional classes, I definitely will throw in some holiday lessons in there just to mix things up. It's kind of nice to get away from the textbook every once in a while, for sure.
Yeah. In university, I took some fairly advanced German courses, and I don't think I would have been too impressed if we'd taken a break from our regular studies for like Oktoberfest, but then we still have a very intense project to get done for the end of the semester. There's no time for that.
I know, exactly. I felt like that. And I'm sure the students felt like, I need to know how to write an essay. Like, what are we doing talking about Valentine's Day right now? So yeah, definitely don't use holiday lessons in all classes, but there are certainly kids classes are kind of the less serious, just kind of more for like just fun conversational English classes, then definitely consider. So we'll start with a few general activities for any holiday. So one of my favorite ones that doesn't really involve any English, but is just for fun, it's something my grandma used to do always around Christmas time, is she would just put candies in a jar, like Christmas candies or Valentine's candies, whatever, green jelly beans for St. Patrick's Day, just kind of whatever themed thing you can find. And then I give all the students in my classes one guess. And then whoever makes the best guess gets to take the candy jar home. So they can share with their classmates, but I will tell them you don't have to, or like I kind of just tell them privately, you can share, but you don't have to. Just take it home if you want to and do whatever you would like with it. So it just kind of creates some fun and excitement. And it's just kind of this like entertaining, kind of fun thing to do in class.
Yeah. Oh, students always love that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I know, it just is like a fun thing that happens at school. I don't know, you can't always say that there's like a fun, exciting thing happening at school, but yeah, this is a good one. And it only costs, a mason jar or whatever, and a few dollars worth of candy, and you can have a really fun activity for sure. Yes. But seal the jar and guard it with your life is the other piece of advice I have. So no one wants disaster of the jar going missing or whatever. So
indeed.
Yeah. And the second one I have is I love to do some crossword puzzles. So I'll teach my students some like holiday themed vocabulary. There's always this special vocabulary for any holiday. And so I teach them that. And then I love to make a crossword puzzle, and I use discovery.com's puzzle maker. And I usually will make it kind of into a friendly competition. So I put students into pairs, and then kind of the first team that completes the crossword puzzle, they'll get like a small prize of some kind. In Korea, it was always a choco pie, but
of course,
just do whatever, the 25-cent candy, and just have some fun in class with some holiday themed vocabulary.
Yeah. Any kind of word puzzles or, coded messages or, anything that is just using the vocabulary, but making it a little bit more fun, that always heightens student enjoyment.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And there's also a ton of like crossword puzzles online.
Yes.
So just have a look, and you can find any like worksheets that are already made up, but it only takes a few minutes to make your own on the discovery.com puzzle maker. So, but then you can, obviously tailor it specifically to what you've taught your students. So
Yeah, but you can do a Google image search, like rather than just Googling, I don't know, Valentine's crosswords, you can do a Google image search, and then you can preview what other people have already made without having to open it. And of course, Pinterest is also really good for that because they'll have images, for the pin. But so, yeah, those are my two top tips for seeing lots of previews in one spot is either Google image search or Pinterest.
All right. That sounds good. And then the next one I have is I'm an Alien. So I use this if I think that students already know a good bit of information about that holiday. Like they've had lessons on it before, maybe it's celebrated in that country. So it's kind of just a good way to help students activate their prior knowledge and their vocabulary that they already have related to that holiday. So I pretend that I'm an alien and I'm on Earth for the first time. And then I say like, what's Easter? Tell me about Easter. What's this holiday? I don't understand. And then let's say like Easter eggs. And I say like, what are Easter eggs? And just kind of play it up and get students to just explain it to you like, basically nothing about the holiday. And it's kind of fun. And I always like on the PowerPoint, I'll put up a picture of an alien and say, I'm an alien. Like the students love it and think it's really funny. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an alien is a good activity, especially for a certain level of student that, it sort of draws them in and gets them to really try to push themselves a little bit with their vocabulary. And I think with holidays, it's really good if you would have I think maybe a large percentage of the class kind of like, we know this information, why do we have to learn it? But maybe not all the students know about it. So, when you have to kind of balance like, okay, 1/3 of the class has never heard of Easter before, and 2/3 of the class feels like they know it all. Like, I feel like I'm an alien is kind of perfect for that situation. Like, okay, put your money where your mouth is.
All right, know-it-alls. Tell me everything. For sure.
Teach your fellow classmates.
Exactly. Okay. And then the next one is the history of the holidays. So I don't even necessarily myself know the history behind many of the holidays, like Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day. It's kind of fuzzy. So there are some really good videos on YouTube designed for English learners that you can play, and then you can kind of do a quiz about it or something like that, or have students research about the history and then give a little presentation or answer some comprehension questions based on their research. There's a ton of things you can do, but this is just, it's quite an interesting thing that students wouldn't necessarily have done before, in their classes.
Yeah, so if you want to really get into it and do a little bit more hardcore planning, you can create, a web quest where the students are given certain links that they need to go. And it's kind of a scavenger hunt, but you give them specific links to go and look through the information on that page and answer questions.
I like it.
Yeah. But that's maybe for slightly older students. I mean, I've done web quests with 4th graders and they're fine, but they were quite high level English speakers. So they weren't both young and low level English speakers. I think you need at least one of the two in your favor.
Yes, exactly. It's so true. It might be disaster if not. So use with caution in the right context and with the right group of students for sure. So then you have an activity that I think would be good for any holiday, actually. So spot the difference pictures.
Yes.
So what is that?
Spot the difference pictures. I mean, everybody knows these from when you're a little kid. They would come in little children's magazines. But there's 2 pictures, and there are some very slight differences between the 2 pictures. And so the way to do the activity by yourself is to look at the 2 pictures, compare them, and circle all the differences. The pair work version is to give picture A to student A and picture B to student B and have a divider between the two of them. And they have to do, they have to describe to one another the main aspects of their pictures. So you will want to be a bit judicious about the pictures that you choose to use for this. So, for example, with Easter, if there are pictures of decorated eggs, there might be an egg that has had the decorations missing. So one egg, egg on picture A is decorated and egg on picture B is blank. And that kind of thing. So spot the difference pictures are fun for the kids, and it gets them talking to each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're easy to find online. Don't create
very
your own.
Easy.
Definitely.
Yeah, no.
Have a look. And they're also called jigsaw activities or information gap activities. So those are kind of some other search terms that this spot the difference pictures kind of fall under that. Those wider categories.
Yeah, but like if you go to Pinterest and search for spot the difference Easter, you'll get probably 100 different options.
Mm-hmm. So Groundhog Day is another one that honestly maybe it's more of an American thing. I think in Canada I like don't even really understand Groundhog's Day, so I never have done a lesson about it, but I think you've maybe done it before.
Yes. So, well, again, because it's for kids and I will try to find some holiday every month. But Groundhog's Day, 100% an American holiday. So do a little bit of the history of the holiday with like a little reading passage. And of course, you can do coloring pages. You can introduce groundhogs because students may not know what groundhogs are. And if your students are a little bit higher level, another name for a groundhog is a woodchuck. And there is a tongue twister with woodchucks in it.
Yes.
So
I do know that.
Yeah. Spin it into a tongue twister. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck? And also Groundhog's Day has to do with seasons, the change of season. How much more winter will we have? So that all ties into change of seasons, weather forecasting, and then more generally predictions. So there's a lot of different ways you could go to have a lesson that very, very, very loosely relates to Groundhog Day.
Yeah, for sure. That does sound fun. Yeah, and especially if you're like trying to come up with lots of holiday theme lessons, this could potentially be a gold mine and a whole bunch of vocabulary that students would never have learned before in many cases. So
yeah,
for sure. All right, so let's move into Valentine's Day. So sometimes if I teach kids, I'll get them to make Valentine's Day cards for each other, for the other teachers, for their parents, etc. There's kind of various ways of doing it depending kind of on class size. If we have a very small class, I'll get the students to make a card for every other person in the class. Bigger classes, I'll just say you can make 5 for whoever you want, a teacher or your mom or whatever. So before I do that, though, I show examples of Valentine's Day cards and kind of some common greetings for your friend or for your teacher or for a romantic partner. And I kind of explain the differences among all those things.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, and you can find sort of scaffolded Valentine's Day card activities where it's either shadow writing, where the words that they would write are written in pale gray, or like dotted lines, or there is an example on the page and the Valentine's card is smaller. So like the Valentine's card is half the page and the top half shows a completed example. And so then they can write the message themselves, but it's right above for them to just copy. So that's for your lower level students.
All right. So the next activity I have around Valentine's Day, it's quite fun to talk about with adults, of course, and university students, is to talk about dating and dating etiquette. It's quite an interesting lesson. So I'll generally will find like kind of one of those little articles that you can find in like magazines or something like that, like top 10 rules for dating or something like that. And I'll generally like adapt it to the level of my students, and then they can read it And generally the rules will be for like dating in North America or dating in Europe or whatever, and kind of in the more Western world. But if you're in Korea or China or whatever, then you could put students into groups, maybe of 4, and have them make, like, say, their top 5 rules for dating and in China or wherever you are. And then they can do a little presentation related to that. So yeah, it's been a really fun lesson the times that I've done it.
Yeah, that does sound fun. And you can even do things like you can find dating etiquette from the past, like Cosmo 1960s dating advice. And some of those are pretty funny. And so you can get them to sort of compare and contrast, how would you feel if somebody told you to do this? Is that still valid, or is that, ridiculous advice or whatever?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can also do, I've done before, like first date red flags. So talking about like things, if you go on a first date and this certain thing happens that you're like, ooh, danger, and you'll never go on a second date with them. It can be like funny too. It doesn't have to be just scary, but like he was on his phone the whole time, or I don't know, just stuff like that. So yeah, that's also another kind of fun variation of this.
Yeah.
All right.
And again, I guess the only caveat is going back to the Easter activity. Of course, there are some countries where dating is a non-issue. So
yes, read the room.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, in Korea, I did it with Korean university students, and it was always just a fun time because they were all just starting to date each other, and yeah, and I mean, yeah, it was you were able to just talk about that in Korea quite freely without being worried about any repercussions from the admin. So yeah, it was fine. All right. And then the next one is advice columns. So there are many problems that people write in about their love concerns. So you can just find one of them and then adapt it to the level of the students, or you can even find some that are designed for ESL students. And I generally will have my students read it and then give some advice related to that. So you could make it into a whole lesson and like have each group make a little presentation about it, or you could just have the students talk about it in small groups. You could have 2 or 3 different problems and each group gets a different problem and then has to summarize it and then has to give some advice and make a presentation about that. So there's actually like a ton of different ways. So just kind of get creative, but it's always, everyone likes giving advice. And everyone likes reading about people's problems generally. Right. So it's always interesting. I think most students are pretty engaged with this kind of lesson.
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm. All right. And I will add, this is one that I know is good for Korea, but maybe some other countries. Korea starts with Valentine's Day, but then they also a month later have White Day. And then a month later have Black Day. So you can compare and contrast like Valentine's Day with White Day and both of those with Black Day, whatever. And if you don't know, and why should you if you don't know about Korea, but White Day in Korea on Valentine's Day, girls give boys a gift. And then White Day, the boys give a girl a gift, and then Black Day is for singles, and they go and eat jjajangmyeon, which is noodles with a black sauce.
I'm impressed that you remember all that. I honestly don't remember who gives who what. I don't think I ever knew, quite honestly. I'd always just get the students to tell me every year. I couldn't remember.
Well, so I mainly remember because I thought it was so silly. Well, Valentine's Day was a day for girls to give boys presents because it's always the boys that are spending money. So it's the day for the girl to do something.
Oh, yeah.
But then White Day, I'm like, well, if it's, reciprocation, because boys were always spending money on girls, like, why do they then have, it's just another Valentine's Day, really.
Why? Yeah, it's true. All right. So next up is St. Patrick's Day, Jen. So what do you do with your students?
Well, I feel like it's socially, or not socially, culturally insensitive. But St. Patrick's Day is it's an Irish holiday that goes back quite a long time. And I ignore all of the actual history of St. Patrick's Day, unless I'm with sort of high level kids. And then I might have them do a reading passage about St. Patrick and why St. Patrick's Day is actually celebrated. But generally speaking, with little kids, I'll just do the American stuff, which is 4-leaf clovers and leprechauns and rainbows and
beer.
Yeah, I usually leave that out with kids, but I might, if I have classes that are coming to class on St. Patrick's Day, the week before, I'll tell them to wear something green. And then, because I don't know if this is just an American thing, but in the US, especially in elementary school, if you don't wear something green on St. Patrick's Day, then everybody will pinch you. Mm-hmm. So yes. I'll tell all the students to wear something green, and then
I hope usually somebody pinch them.
Usually somebody will forget. So then I'll like kind of wait until the end of class, and I'll just be like, oh, and by the way.
All right, Jen. So what about Easter? So Easter, I mean, as with any religious holiday, it's a little bit tricky. Talking about religion in class is sometimes a big no-no, but then also taking a religious holiday and talking about like chocolate bunnies and like Easter egg hunts and all that kind of thing is also sometimes a big no-no. So how do you kind of get around that?
I think you kind of have to read the room, in the larger sense of if you are overseas, hopefully by Easter, you will have some kind of idea of the larger culture where you are. And then within that, look around at your school. Like I've worked at Christian schools, and I've worked at, just secular schools. And, you just need to be aware. Just be sensitive to your students, and also think about what kind of complaints you might get from parents and admin, I guess, is a basic way to go into it. But definitely in some countries, having a Christian holiday or having a religious holiday in the classroom, they may not want you to spend a lot of time on that. Let's put it that way. And in other countries, the opposite, like as you said, they may not really be into, oh, it's Easter, celebration of Christ's rebirth. Have a chocolate egg.
Yes, exactly. So use with caution, but yeah, definitely I like the advice about reading the room and just kind of seeing the situation, like what your school is doing, and even just ask your boss if you're not sure about it is another thing that you could certainly do. Just say like, hey, I'm thinking about having an Easter lesson. What do you think about that? And just kind of see what they say. And all right. So some activities that I really like to do that are a little bit like not super English related, but are just fun is an Easter egg hunt, and then Easter egg decorating. So they both kind of have their logistical materials kind of challenges, but for smaller groups of students, it can be really, really a fun time. So for Easter egg hunts, I like to just hide things on the break before my students come into class. And I just usually will get like very cheap Easter eggs if possible. And I'll generally do like 2 or 3 per student. And then I just kind of explain what they are and talk about Easter eggs and like my own experience with it from when I was a kid. And then I say, and then there's Easter eggs hidden in here. And they just run around and get them and have a fun time. So I don't know, that's how I do it. And then Easter egg decorating, there's various ways. You can like print off coloring sheets for very little kids. Older kids, you can do like boil the Easter egg and then they can decorate it. Or you could even do the, for teenagers or adults, you can like break the egg and then blow out the center and then decorate it that way using wax and just kind of go the whole thing. So yeah, there's a ton of different ways you could do this. Each of them having, some of them are obviously like the coloring Easter egg sheets are very easy, and you can even make that into a contest, and then it gets to like quite difficult in terms of materials and skill required, I guess.
Yes, but you can add in an English presentation aspect of everyone showing what they've made. And this can be an actual egg, as you say, like they can color them with markers or, their paints or whatever, or you can do printouts, just an oval. You can find lots of blank egg shaped ovals to print out. And so they can color them and decorate them as they like, and then show off what they've made to the class. If it's a real egg and a big class, I would say small group work would be best for that. Well, if it's a big class, small group work is probably just better for showing what they've made and talking about it anyway. But if you want everyone to show their egg, these days, there's so much technology. Take a photo with your phone and put it on the overhead monitor, and then everyone can see. But then they can talk about it, and they can use colors and, words. You can teach some vocabulary like polka dots or dots or circles or zigzags or, whatever appropriate words would go with it.
All right. So our final holiday is April Fool's Day. So of course, talk about the history of this holiday. I don't even know it myself. So I'm actually curious to find out about the history. So I would be learning along with my students about that. So do you like to play pranks in your classes, Jen, with your students on April Fool's?
I am not the best prankster because I generally don't enjoy being pranked. So every now and then. And I will say that this is something that other teachers I feel like do a lot better than I do. Like if you look on YouTube, you can find the funniest video of a teacher giving his students an April Fool's spelling test. And he's like, okay, we're going to check the words. And they are all the most hilarious made up words. And he's got, a ton of silent letters. And, oh, did you forget the dash in there? And there was a dash. And the students are all like, what? And so, there are mild sort of April Fool's pranks that you can do as a teacher. Better if you know your class and if it's a class that's not going to have a meltdown before they find out.
Yeah, I would do some funny kind of things. I don't know. It depended on the class for sure. But yeah, I would definitely just kind of make jokes about okay, anyway, so the test is close your books. We have our test today. And students would be like, what? It's April Fool's. And then I don't know. So just very mild jokes like that. And then usually a couple of students would be like, oh, haha, April Fool's. I know there's no test today or whatever, something like that. And then also on April Fool's Day, you could do the game Two Truths and a Lie, which I'm sure everyone is probably played before. So yeah, it's a fun game for if you have a small class to play together as a class, or students can also do it in small groups.
I will just repeat again, if you are ever at a loss for ideas of holiday themed activities, then just look them up on Pinterest, especially if you have younger students, because there will be, you will be spoiled for choice, and you at least to get an idea of something that you can adapt for your class. But if you're lucky, you'll have everything right there, and you can just print away.
And I would just, one kind of final thing is that holiday lesson does not always need to equal holiday movie. I think in many cases, many teachers think oh, Christmas lesson. Oh, I'll show Home Alone, but it doesn't need to. There's actually a million kind of other more interesting and probably more beneficial things for the students to do. They can actually learn some English related to that holiday and have some vocabulary to talk about it, or talk about their opinions or ideas or thoughts related to things Valentine's Day and dating, and then St. Patrick's Day talking about luck and their thoughts on that, and Valentine's Day, yeah, talking about love, so many things. So or New Year's resolutions. So get beyond the movie, think bigger and better.
Yeah, please. Especially, unless the students are close to intermediate, at least, I feel like movie day is kind of just a time waster. But that being said, there are some Mr. Bean movies. I think there's a Mr. Bean Christmas one, and they're pretty short and it's silent. So it doesn't matter what their language is. The important thing is after it's done, you can discuss it. So you're getting them to produce the language rather than having high level language just kind of washing over the top of their head.
Yeah, I certainly will show some clips like about the history of holidays and stuff, but those are like, like 2 or 3 or 5 minutes. And then the whole lesson is kind of based around that. So that's different than just like, okay, let's just sit and relax for 2 hours and watch this movie that you don't understand. Really anything.
Yeah, a 2 to 5 minute clip of something where they have been given a listening task is 100% different from here's a movie that you could have watched at home last night or, any other time.
Exactly. All right. So if you want more ideas for ESL holiday activities, there is a book on Amazon. It's called 63 ESL Holiday Games and Activities by Jackie Bolin. And definitely check that out. There's a whole bunch of general activities, and then there's ideas for specific holidays like Christmas, Valentine's Day, New Year's, etc. All right, Jennifer. So where can people find you?
You can find me on YouTube. My channel name is Teach Travel Learn. You can find me on my blog, but it hasn't been updated in a million years. teachtravelearn.com.
All right.
But I do also on Teachers Pay Teachers, also Teach Travel Learn. I have some holiday activities. Yes, I have some holiday activities up there, and some of them are free. So you don't even have to pay money.
Oh, perfect. That would be helpful. That's great. And people can find me, go to eslactivity.org. And then there's the podcast info there. So just look on the menu bar at the top and you'll see podcasts, but there's also a whole bunch of, games and activities and ideas for teaching. And I actually have a blog post about like each specific holiday, New Year's, Valentines, whatever. So just have a look in the search function and you can see like 15 to 20 ideas for each holiday. And that will help you plan your lesson in style for sure. All right. So I think that's all for us. I will catch you next time, Jennifer.
All right. Until next time.